In this lesson, we will have an introduction to AI Lab. So in the last lesson, we compared fruits based on how sweet and how easy they were to eat. What is another feature we could have used to compare foods? I want you to answer this in your journal, so pause the video and then come back once you've put this information in your journal. Go ahead and go to Code Studio after you do your journal. We are going to look at Lesson 6, Level 1, which is the Fruit Explorer. So you're going to read the instructions and experiment with this widget to see how it works. Using the drop-downs to adjust the features, draw a line that creates a model that correctly classifies at least 80% of the fruits and 80% of the vegetables. It might be very difficult to get 100% accuracy, okay? So one thing that I want you to understand is that you are not expected to master how to use this widget, okay? The complexity of this widget is part of the point. As this lesson progresses, you will see how AI Lab can simplify the process of exploring and analyzing data. So head on over, see what head on over to the widget on Level 1 and read and then play around with it and then come back. Pause the video so you can do that and then come back whenever you are done. This activity shows how just adding a few more features and a few additional foods to our data, it becomes much more complex for us to create the same types of models that we used in the last lesson. Sometimes this process can become overwhelming as we try to keep track of all of our data and all of our features. Well, in this lesson, we will learn how machines can make this process easier for us using a new tool called AI Lab. Your question of the day is, how can you use AI Lab to create an accurate machine learning model? For our activity, I want you to look at this grid. We are going to practice using AI Lab to classify shapes. Based on these images, what are some features we think we can use in AI Lab to train a machine learning model? Some of the features might be geometric, and so we could say like the number of sides. So for a circle, 0. For a square, 4. For a triangle, 3. Okay. We may also want to do something like fill color, which here would be yellow, here it would be pink, or border color, here it would be orange, here it would be red. Let's watch this short video about an introduction to AI Lab.
Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm a curriculum writer at Code.org. I'm here to talk a little bit more about AI Bot and how it can help us make decisions with data with a new tool called AI Lab. Most of the time, we see examples of artificial intelligence and machine learning at the end of the process, after it's already able to make decisions. In the last few lessons, we've learned more about the start of this process. We saw how you can take data, investigate it to find patterns, and then use those patterns to make decisions. We've also learned some of the terms that go along with this process. The features are the inputs that we base our decisions on. The model is what we create to make decisions, and the label is the output from our decisions. For small amounts of data, human beings are capable of finding these patterns and creating these models just like a machine would. But with large amounts of data and with even more features, it becomes harder and harder for humans to analyze all the data so we notice patterns. Sometimes the data can be overwhelming. Luckily, we have machines like AI Bot to help us out. AI Bot can analyze large amounts of data and notice patterns that sometimes humans don't even see. Using some of the techniques we've seen so far, and with a lot more math, AI Bot can create models and make decisions no matter how much data it looks at. This is where machine learning is helpful in solving problems. It can analyze large amounts of data and find trends faster than humans can. But humans still have an important role to play. We help decide what problems AI Bot should solve in the first place, what data it should use, and what features AI Bot should pay attention to. The predictions that AI Bot makes correctly, and even those that it makes incorrectly, are directly related to our decisions about the data and features AI Bot uses. And even after AI Bot makes its predictions, we decide how we want to act on that information. As we start looking at more complex problems with large amounts of data, we'll need AI Bot's help. To help us work with AI Bot, we'll be using a tool called AI Lab. AI Lab lets you prepare data, train a machine learning model, and evaluate how that model is doing. Let's take a look. This is AI Lab. The center of our screen is filled with our data set. This is what we'll use to train our model and make a prediction. In this example, I've loaded our shoe survey data from before, where we tried to predict what shoes someone should wear based on several survey questions. Just above our data set is a sentence starter. This sentence represents the model that we're preparing for AI Bot. The first part's been filled out for us. We want to predict what shoes someone should wear based on, and then the last part is blank. This is because we need to fill this in by selecting different columns we want to use as features in our model. When I click on a column, the right panel loads with more information about this column. I can see a longer description about what this column represents, more than just the 1 or 2 word heading at the top. I can also see a cross-tab table. This table is helpful for determining whether or not this column will be a useful feature in our model. For example, I can see that there's a hot spot in my table based on how people want to spend their time. Folks who want to spend their time in bed are really likely to select sandals as their preferred shoe. Exploring hotspots in these tables can help determine whether or not this is a useful feature in my model. I can also see a bar chart, which tells me how often certain values appear in my data. Even though there's a high relationship between bed and sandals, I can see only 18 people said they were going to spend their day in bed. If I decide that I want to use this column as one of my features, I can press the Add Feature button. I can choose as many columns as I'd like to use as features in my model. Every time I add a feature, my sentence updates to show me what my model will be trained on. If I change my mind and want to remove a feature, I can press the little X to have it removed from my model. Once you've explored your columns and selected your features, you can press the Train button to see how well AI Bot can create a model based on these features.
All right, let's go to Code Studio, Lesson 6, Level 2. And what you're going to do is click on each column and look at the right panel to notice patterns that AI bot found in the data. To create sentences like, when AI bot sees blank, it tends to be a blank shape. Try to create those sentences, okay? Don't press the train button yet. Okay, so let's look at this level. You've got your instructions right here. This screen lets you choose features to use in your model. Do this, follow the instructions on your activity guide to decide which features to select. So you need to download your activity guide. And this is going to be on the assignment post, and it's called Training and Activity Guide. Nope, it's called Activity Guide, Training a Model in AI Lab. Okay, explore AI Lab to create models that classify a shape. You should train multiple models from the same data set and keep track of the accuracy by filling in the table below. Okay, so let's look back over here. Okay, predict the shape based on what? This is what we're trying to predict. These are the features. Okay, if you ever get confused, you can click on the help and tips, and it will show you that video that we watched explaining all of the things. Okay, so remember, these are the features, and the output is the label. So this is the label. These are the features. Predict shape based on fill color. So whenever we choose the fill color, this is what we get. Do you think this would be a good feature for helping to determine a shape? What we see here is that, for example, the fill color pink. If we use the color pink, each shape has this as a fill color. And so that could be problematic. I don't think it's going to help us add anything. What about background color? Same thing. White background color. Each shape has at least one with a white background color. Okay, let's look at size. There are big circles and big squares, small circles and small squares. Size is not going to help us at all. What about border color? It's not really going to help us. Yes, there are blue circles more than any other blue shape, but it's not going to help us. Let's look at sides. Okay, for 0 sides, there's only one shape that has 0 sides, and that's 100% of the circles. So the higher the number for a single feature, the greater the accuracy is going to be. So let's add that feature. What types of patterns did AI bot notice? Well, AI bot noticed that all of these shapes AI bot noticed that the sides has a 100% relationship with each shape. And that shouldn't be surprising. We learned that in elementary. But as far as patterns in the data, like with size, small shapes tend to be triangles. Big shapes tend to be squares or circles. Yellow shapes that are filled in tend to be circles. White shapes that are filled in tend to be triangles. So the higher that number, the greater the accuracy. Okay. A border color. Green border colors are mostly triangles. But so are red. So blue border colors are mostly circles. Look at this bar graph. Okay, now let's look at the bar graph. So when you were looking at this grid, did you notice those same patterns? I did not. I did not notice those patterns, but AIBot did, and AIBot noticed them quickly. And so because AIBot noticed those patterns, we can go in and we can verify those patterns. So using the hotspots, which that's what these are, the hotspots, the darker colors. Using the hotspots as a guide, select 1 or 2 features to use in your model and then press the train button. Don't start with sides, okay? Because we already know that's going to be 100%. All right, let's start with something else. Click Add Feature and then click Train. What you're going to do is you're going to see AIBot training in the instructions. It took 90% of the data set to examine and look for patterns. It's kind of like studying for a test. Once it sees enough examples, it should be able to make decisions that are similar to the data it has seen so far. You can press the continue button at any time because the graphic it's literally just an animation. Okay, so you don't have to sit here and watch it if you don't want to. Now AIBot is checking how well it did. It's taking the other 10% of the data set and predicting what it thinks the label will be. It's kind of like quizzing yourself on your problems you already know the answer to. You can compare the answers with the correct answers to see how you did. You can press the continue button at any time to go to the next screen. On this screen, you can see how accurate AIBot was when comparing its predictions to the testing data that we already know the answers to. So what you're going to do, follow the instructions on the activity guide to train several different models. Record your results on your activity guide. So based on the border color, AIBot was able to predict the shape with 80% accuracy. This is what the details look like. The border color was black. It was a square. It predicted a square. Okay. So those are the ones that it got correct. These are the ones that it got wrong. Okay, so we will try it ourselves. We're going to choose the border color, say black, and we're going to predict. AI predicts a square. Okay, so let's go back. All right, you have already done this part. So click try again, and let's go back and choose a different feature to predict the label. Okay, again, you can hit continue, continue. All right, so the fill color has only a 40% accuracy, and that's really bad. So let's go ahead and just click try again. We don't need to even try that one out. What about adding more than one feature, fill color and background color. Let's train it, continue, continue. So with these two, you get 80% accuracy. What about 3 features? Oh, that's interesting because it went from 80% to 40%. So, really bad. Okay, let's move on to just the sides and click train. We get 100% accuracy, which we knew because whenever we saw the data for the sides, we knew. Okay, we knew. It got nothing incorrect. All right, if a shape has 0 sides, what's it going to be? It's going to be a circle. We know that. Okay. So complete your accuracy percentages based on whenever you choose those features. Okay. And pause the video here so you can do that and then come on back so we can move on.
When you press the train button in AI Lab, you see 2 animations featuring AI Bot. The first animation shows the data going row by row into AI Bot's head. And the second animation shows AI Bot scanning additional rows of data and filling in the label. Let's take a closer look at what's happening behind the scenes on these 2 screens. AI Bot starts by splitting the data into 2 groups. A larger chunk of the data will be studied by AI Bot to create its model. This is called the training data. The rest of the data is kept secret from AI Bot. This is called the testing data. It will be used later to check how accurate AI Bot's predictions are. When we see the rows of data going into AI Bot's head, that's when it's processing the training data and using it to build a model to make decisions. Each row of data impacts the model that it creates. The actual model is much more complex and harder to visualize, but the process is similar, just with a lot more math. After AI Bot has studied all the training data and created its model, it's time to check our answers and see how well it does. This is what we see on the second screen when AI Bot is scanning the testing data. Since this testing data came from our original data set, we already know the correct predictions. This means when AI Bot scans the data, it also makes its own predictions. And with these 2 pieces of information, we can compare them and see how well AI Bot did. This is like taking a practice test and checking your answers afterwards. Based on the results, it looks like AI Bot got 5 out of 8 correct, which is only 63% accurate. This is where we, as humans, have to decide whether or not it is acceptable, or if we think we can do better and get a more accurate score. Back in AI Lab, I can also see the accuracy of my model. This represents how many predictions AI Bot got correct when compared with the original testing data. A highly accurate model is useful, but it doesn't mean it's perfect. It just means AI Bot's predictions will match the same patterns from our original dataset. This also means that if our original dataset had flaws, AI Bot will make flawed predictions, even if it claims to be highly accurate. This is why our role in machine learning is so important. Our choices about what data to use in AI Lab has the biggest impact on whether the models we create are useful and fair. This is also why it's important to test our model, even when it's accurate. You can use this panel on the right to test your model with new values that it hasn't seen before. This is just as important as making sure your model has high accuracy. If I want to retrain my model, I can press the Try Again button. AI Lab will keep track of your previous models to help you remember which combinations of features led to higher accuracy. In this way, training a model is kind of like being a scientist. You're testing and experimenting with different combinations of features until you find ones with high accuracy and that don't raise any issues when testing. Eventually, we'll be able to save our models and import them into AppLab. But for now, it's important to become familiar with AI Lab and practice training accurate and fair models.
So you have explored how to classify a shape. You trained multiple models, and at the very end, you added all of the features together. What was the accuracy of adding all of those features together? Having just the border color and the fill color as the features had a 90% accuracy rate. What do you think would happen if we tried to use this model in the real world? Do you think it would be just as accurate? Just because this dataset has patterns with how the shapes are drawn doesn't mean it will represent shapes in the real world. You can also verify this by testing the data in AI Lab. It shouldn't feel intuitive that our model can predict a shape just from its size and color, especially if we tried showing it a wider variety of shapes. I want you to remember the video where high accuracy only means that the model can reproduce patterns in the data and that we as humans have control over deciding what features are important. So whenever you added all of these features, size, border color, fill color, background color, and size, it had a 90% accuracy. But having it just with the size, it had 100% accuracy. So why do you think having all of the features was less accurate than just one feature? How do you think that happened? It might be a little bit difficult to put this reason into words, but what we think is that whenever we go and add all of the features, we think it might make it more accurate, but that's not true. Adding all of the features to make it more accurate is just a misconception. It's important to make sure that you don't think that way because it's not always going to be true. And if you don't think that way, it will lead you to more fruitful investigations in the future as we iterate and experiment in AI Lab to find the best models. So let's look at this. This is the accuracy screen on the left and the training data on the right. So looking at the training data, why did AI bot think this small brown shape with a red border was a triangle? Look at the training data. Small shapes tend to be triangles, is what it looks like. We can always go back and see whenever we look at just the size, small shapes tend to be triangles. Okay? So most small shapes in the training data were triangles with very few squares. Most shapes with a red outline in the training data were triangles with very few squares. There aren't a lot of brown squares in the training data. And if you don't notice these things immediately, that's okay. In this example, AI bot thought the small brown square with a red border was a triangle. If we look at the rest of the training data, we see a lot of small shapes are triangles. A lot of triangles have red borders, and not a lot of squares are brown. With all these extra features, AI bot got confused and thought these other patterns were more important than the number of sides. This is why it's important to only use data with a strong relationship to your model. And if we think back, the sides feature had a 100% relationship with the label. So you want to use the strongest relationship, and you don't want to include extra features that don't have strong relationships. All right, like color or border color. So let's look at the next part. This is a new problem for us. We are going to be creating recommendations based on user survey data. Y'all have been hired by a pizza restaurante to help figure out what customers like best based on the toppings they pick. You collected a bunch of data about people's preferences on various pizza toppings like pepperoni, peppers, anchovies, fried chicken, and others. Fried chicken? I have literally never had fried chicken on a pizza, but okay. You're going to use this data to find patterns in the customer's preferences. We are going to go to Code Studio, Lesson 6, Level 3. And what I want you to do is train a model that is at least 80% accurate using no more than 4 features. All right? Not more than 4 features. If you don't get 80% accuracy, you can always go back and choose new features. Be sure to record your results on your activity guide down here. Okay, what features did you use? What was the accuracy? And describe the strategy you chose or the strategy you used when choosing features and trying to create an accurate model. All right, pause the video here so you can complete that. Once you get done with level 3, move on to level 4, and you are going to choose the data set. So some of the options you have to choose from are bubble tea, cookies, naan, poke, poutine, raspado, salad, and salsa. And these are cute little kawaii bowls. So go ahead and what you're going to do is select a data set, investigate how you can train a recommendation model for your situation, and keep track of your model on your activity guide. On your activity guide, you have this specific section for level 4, and so you're going to keep up with this while you are working through level 4. Pause the video here so you can go to level 4 and then come back so we can wrap it up. For your journal wrap up, what is one example from this lesson of how humans can influence the machine learning process? And then you can also answer this in your journal wrap up. How can you use AI Lab to create an accurate machine learning model? This question is literally just summarizing what we did in this lesson. So I hope that you can add a response in your journal summarizing what you did to help AI Lab create an accurate machine learning model. If you did not get an accurate machine learning model, go back through the lesson, okay? And congratulations on making it through another lesson.